Let's talk about AIPAC. They blew close to $40 million trying to defeat Dr. El Sayed in Michigan. No other single issue political action committee, with the possible exception of the cryptocurrency lobby, comes close to spending this type of money in Democratic primaries as AIPAC does. The other super PACs are all Democratic Party super PACs, leadership PACs. Outside of the Democratic Party, nobody comes close to AIPAC and the cryptocurrency super PACs. $40 million spent by AIPAC to defeat Dr. El Sayed. Now, this is literally an ungodly sum. Haley Stevens, Congresswoman Haley Stevens, just endorsed Dr. Sayed. AIPAC gave her $40 million. That must mean they have plenty of faith in Congresswoman Haley Stevens. And if Haley Stevens, who says she sees Israel in her dreams, endorses Dr. Sayed, well, that should be good enough for AIPAC, right? Wrong. AIPAC is donating to Democratic candidates way, way more than it donates to Republicans. So that suggests AIPAC is part of my family of Democrats who want to defeat fascism come November. But this is what a spokesperson for AIPAC said immediately after Haley Stevens lost. This is what AIPAC officially said. AIPAC said, "Our members remain determined to ensure that voters reject Dr. El Sayed and his radical anti-Israel agenda in November," unquote. And now AIPAC is raising the possibility of donating to Dr. El Sayed's Republican opponent, Mike Rogers. AIPAC, so far this year, has spent $63 million supporting Democratic candidates. They target the Democratic Party. They only spent so far $4.2 million this year on Republican candidates. AIPAC is attempting to influence the Democratic Party. They want to move the Democratic Party further to the right. They're not attempting to move the Republican Party to the center or away from fascism. AIPAC is targeting the Democratic Party, and it still has about $80 million in their 2026 war chest, probably more. 2 years ago, AIPAC spent $127 million. 92% of all that money spent on Democrats. AIPAC targets the Democratic Party. This is what my mayor, Zohran Mamdani, has been talking about. AIPAC targets the Democratic Party on behalf of a foreign government, not on behalf of Israel, Zionism, or Jews, on behalf of the current government headed by Benjamin Netanyahu. The bulk of their money, AIPAC's money, is spent during primaries, specifically targeting progressive Democratic candidates. This is what AIPAC has been doing since 2022. It spends millions, 92% of it, in the Democratic primaries targeting Democratic candidates who AIPAC labels anti-Semitic. Because why? Because they question Israel's ultra-right-wing conservative government. No other single-issue super PAC with the possible exception of the cryptocurrency lobbyists, spends this kind of money to influence the outcome of races inside the Democratic Party. It is dark money, meaning AIPAC funnels their cash to the United Democracy Project or other innocently named super PACs, so AIPAC's attack ads, which have nothing to do with Israel, can't be traced back to AIPAC. AIPAC tries to control the narrative by saying any attacks against AIPAC is an attack against Jews, that this is anti-Semitic. You're attacking Jews and their dark money? You're saying Jews are pulling all the strings? That's an anti-Semitic trope. That's what AIPAC says. Any criticism of AIPAC and its dark money is an anti-Semitic trope. To which I say, go F yourself, AIPAC. Seriously, go F yourself. Maybe that crap flies with low information Jewish voters, but you're doing something that's really immoral, AIPAC. You're using anti-Semitism, which is a serious problem, and it's getting worse. You're exploiting anti-Semitism, legitimate Jewish fear. You're exploiting all that for your own political and, dare I say, financial gain. Yes, your financial gain. AIPAC just spent $40 million to defeat Dr. El-Sayed. That's a lot of money wasted. It's a lot of money raised and a lot of money spent on garbage attack ads that do not make the case for Israel or the Jews or even Benjamin Netanyahu. It's $40 million of dark money to attack Dr. El-Sayed personally, accusing him of hating women, hating old people, and secretly taking money from rich Republican donors who want him to be the nominee because he'd be so easy to beat. That's part of the AIPAC narrative to scare Democrats. It is lucrative injecting yourself into Democratic politics. Whether you're AIPAC or any of the other lowlifes spending dark money to destroy the Democratic Party by propping up unelectable right-wing Democrats, it's lucrative. There are people drawing huge salaries looking for ways to call a Democratic candidate anti-Semitic because that candidate doesn't support Benjamin Netanyahu. It's immoral. It's exploiting real anti-Semitism for political and financial gain. It's monstrous behavior, especially since they target all the candidates in the Democratic Party who support Medicare-for-All. When my mayor called AIPAC monsters, he was spot on. AIPAC is not a monster because it's made up of Jews or because it supports Israel's right to exist. AIPAC is made up of monsters because they exploit anti-Semitism, genuine fear, and they exploit it to manipulate Democratic politicians by spending tens of millions of dollars trying to elect Democrats who are not just pro-Benjamin Netanyahu, but anti-social safety net here in America. AIPAC supports Netanyahu, not Israel, Netanyahu. And the same people who are for Netanyahu, it turns out, are against Medicare-for-All. They're also against abolishing ICE. They're also against taxing billionaires and oil companies out of existence. AIPAC claims to be a single-issue super PAC. but it doesn't support progressive values. And it is more than willing to financially support the spread of fascism here in America. AIPAC in 2022 gave money to 37 Republicans who voted not to certify the presidential election for Joe Biden. That was criminal. Not to certify, and then to hand over millions of dollars to those members of Congress who are nothing short of fascists. January 6th was an insurrection. It had just taken place. And Congress assembled hours after January 6th to certify the election for Joe Biden. But AIPAC gave money within a year to 37 Republican members of Congress who voted not to certify the election for Joe Biden. So obviously, American democracy doesn't top the list of AIPAC's chief concerns. AIPAC defended these donations, insisting, hey, we're just a single issue organization. How candidates vote on other issues, like certifying or failing to certify the election for Joe Biden, that's of no concern of ours. As long as they're strong on Israel, they get our money. Well, strong on Netanyahu doesn't mean strong on Israel. AIPAC is strong on Netanyahu. And how does AIPAC giving money to fascists, election deniers, how is that strong on Israel? How is that strong on Zionism, strong on the Jews? Jews from AIPAC, of all people, should be on the front lines fighting, not financing the fascists in America. They should be fighting, not financing the election deniers, because Jews historically are always the people fascists eventually scapegoat. The members of Congress who refused to certify the election for Joe Biden, who sow doubt over his victory to this day, they're not just enemies of democracy, they are fascists. And Republican fascists, as we are now seeing, are willing to lie. Not just about elections, but they're also willing to lie about climate change, immigrants, blacks, and the LGBTQ community. So it's only a matter of time before they start lying in lockstep about the Jews. We already see it surfacing inside the Republican Party. We see real anti-Semitism inside the Republican Party, but AIPAC doesn't seem too concerned about it, except for one candidate in Texas. They have remained pretty silent about the blatant, overt anti-Semitism running roughshod through the Republican Party, especially among young Republicans. We've seen the texts, the messages, the emails shared by members of the young Republican Party here in New York, young Republicans throughout the country, young Republicans inside Congress, where the dirty, dark secret is young male Republican staffers up on Capitol Hill. Most of them are huge fans of self-described Nazi Nick Fuentes. There is a serious problem of anti-Semitism in the Republican Party. And you know how I know there is? J.D. Vance insists there isn't. And AIPAC doesn't seem too concerned about genuine anti-Semitism inside the Republican Party. Yes, it has spoken out a little, but nothing compared to the money and words wasted by AIPAC when they accuse anyone who so much as questions Benjamin Netanyahu of being anti-Semitic. After Dr. El-Sayed won, what did Trump do on Wednesday? He immediately accused Dr. El-Sayed of hating the Jews. Think about this. Trump, once again, accusing Dr. El-Sayed of hating the Jews. He is parroting an AIPAC talking point. So I can't tell you the number of writers I used to respect who are insisting that Dr. El-Sayed fans the flames of anti-Semitism in this country. They write this, and then you have Donald Trump cutting to the chase and just saying flat out, Dr. El-Sayed hates the Jews. Well, you don't need to go deep into the weeds about AIPAC, Israel, Michigan, Gaza, or Dr. El-Sayed. All you need to know is this. Donald Trump lies about Muslims, insists they're spreading Sharia law. He says Haitians are eating your pet cats and dogs, that ICE fights crime by locking up rapists, child molesters, and murderers. He just said Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer are communists who will kick you out of your home and turn all your property over to the state. Trump says he attacked Iran because they were days away from a nuclear weapon. He says we're just days away from a deal with the Iranians. He says we have to get rid of Obamacare because he's got something much bigger and better to replace it. Every single word coming out of Donald Trump's mouth is a lie. The reflecting pool is filled with algae because of vandals. The election is rigged. Immigrants are voting. You don't need a PhD in Middle Eastern studies to know that when Donald Trump says Dr. El-Sayed hates Jews, that means Dr. El-Sayed loves Jews. And with Trump, as we all know, every accusation, a confession. His administration, his Pentagon, his party, littered with anti-Semites. Kingsley Wilson, the official Pentagon spokesperson, is a proponent of the Great Replacement theory. Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, Mike Johnson, all proponents of the Great Replacement theory. And if you don't know what the Great Replacement theory is or why it's anti-Semitic, then you think AIPAC is on the side of Israel, Democrats, and the Jews. People say, how can Donald Trump hate Jews? His daughter, Ivanka, married one. You know who married a Jew? Magda Goebbels. Her mother married a Jew. Dr. Joseph Goebbels' wife, her mother married a Jew. Magda Goebbels, her maiden name was Friedlander. Magda Goebbels, who many consider the first lady of Nazi Germany, who Hitler adored, maybe even had some kind of sexual relationship with, and because it's Hitler, bisexual, I mean a bottle of prune juice, some psyllium husk, and a glass coffee table. Magda Goebbels, her maiden name was Friedlander. Her mother married a Jew. People say, but Stephen Miller is Jewish. Yeah, I know. So is Benjamin Netanyahu. And so is Itamar Ben-Gvir, Israel's interior minister, who represents a party called Jewish Power and repeatedly calls for the forced relocation of all Palestinians from Gaza into Egypt and Jordan. He's not the only one inside Netanyahu's government calling for the forced removal of Palestinians from Gaza. Now, I don't want to debate apartheid, or genocide, but I can assure you, relocating Palestinians out of Gaza is ethnic cleansing. Well, how dare you compare Netanyahu to the Nazis, people say. I'm not. You can be a monster and still not be as bad as Adolf Hitler. You don't need to wipe out an entire people to commit genocide or ethnic cleansing. You just need to put some big numbers on the board. So, yeah, AIPAC, monsters. There are people who work for AIPAC who wake up every morning with the sole purpose of destroying the Democratic Party, making sure my party nominates unelectable candidates who don't care about the poor, the working poor, the middle class, and of course, Palestinians or Israelis. $40 million they gave to Haley Stevens. They trusted her so much, they now refuse to honor her endorsement of Dr. Syed. Why? Why can't they bring themselves to endorse Dr. El-Sayed? Because, AIPAC says, of his, quote, radical Israel agenda. What is his radical agenda? He opposes giving military aid to Israel. And this, AIPAC says, is radical. AIPAC calls this radical. And they say, why is Dr. El-Sayed singling Israel out? He's anti-Semitic. What about all the other countries America gives military aid to? How come he's not talking about that? Yes, that's AIPAC. Dr. Syed is anti-Semitic because he's singling out the foreign military aid America gives to Israel, while at the same time, so the argument and accusation goes, at the same time he conveniently ignores all those hundreds of other countries receiving foreign military aid from the United States. How come he's so obsessed with Israel? How come he's only concerned about the foreign military aid we give Israel? Why? Trump's right. He hates the Jews. Well, that's how the argument goes. And that's what AIPAC wants low information Democrats to believe. He's singling out Israel, so he's anti-Semitic. Well, the sin of omission here is Dr. El-Sayed isn't singling out Israel. It's the government of the United States that's singling out Israel. No other country on the planet comes close to Israel when it comes to receiving foreign military aid. And by the way, it's not that much. But 54% of all our foreign military aid goes to Israel, more than half. Where does the other go? Where's the other half go? Well, 21% of it goes to Egypt. Why? That's to buy peace between Egypt and Israel. And 7% goes to Jordan. That's to buy peace between Jordan and Israel. So more than half of our foreign military aid goes directly to Israel. When you add in Jordan and Egypt, roughly 80% of all our foreign military aid goes towards protecting Israel. And the rest, about 15%, goes to other countries scattered around the world. This is baked into our budget year after year since the 1978 Camp David Accords, which Jimmy Carter brokered to bring peace between Israel, Egypt, and Jordan. That's where the bulk of our foreign military aid goes. Ukraine, you ask? Well, that is right now being funded through what are called supplementals. We don't budget automatically for Ukraine. We do for Israel. year after year in our budgets, we allocate a pittance for military aid. Comes out to about $3.3 billion for Israel. Since October 7th, our country has given more to Israel as part of that war supplemental that includes Ukraine, Taiwan, and border security. But that's temporary. Year after year, more than half of our foreign military aid goes to Israel. It's about $3.3 billion for Israel, about that. AIPAC calls it a radical idea to cut that aid. In fact, it's such a radical idea that Lindsey Graham and Benjamin Netanyahu both agreed it's time to stop giving Israel $3.3 billion a year because they both said Israel no longer needs it. But it's radical for Dr. El-Sayed. It's anti-Semitic for Dr. El-Sayed to say the same thing Lindsey Graham, Satan rests his soul, and Benjamin Netanyahu have said. Why does Dr. El-Sayed want to cut off the funding that even Benjamin Netanyahu says is unnecessary? The aid should be cut off, according to Dr. El-Sayed, because there are always strings attached to foreign military aid. If you're going to use American tax dollars to build or buy weapons, your interests must be identical to ours. It's not in America's national interest for Israel to wage war on the women and children of Gaza because it makes America less safe. Now, there's no excuse for terrorism. You don't ask what caused October 7th. You don't ask what caused September 11th. Can't ask that question. But every woman and child the United States or Israel kills becomes an excuse for terrorism. Osama bin Laden said one of the primary reasons for 9/11 was George W. Bush abandoning the Palestinian people. We know much of the funding for 9/11 came from the Saudi royal family. Not the Saudi government, but from Saudi princes who were furious with George W. Bush for abandoning Bill Clinton's peace talks between Israel and the Palestinians. Some of you might remember Clinton was trying to broker a two-state solution during the waning months of his administration. Some say he came close. Others say it was never going to happen, but he kept the dialogue going all the way up until Inauguration Day when George W. Bush took over. George W. Bush, Dick Cheney, had no interest in Israel or the Palestinians. We know Crown Prince Abdullah of Saudi Arabia, in the months leading up to September 11th, we know he sent pointed messages to George W. Bush, signaling his outrage over Bush's abandonment of the Palestinian people. Did 9/11 happen because Bush ignored the Palestinians? No. 9/11 happened because Bush ignored an intelligence briefing that was sitting on his desk, literally saying, August 6, 2001, this is what the intelligence briefing said. Presidential Daily Brief, bin Laden determined to strike in U.S., unquote. That's what the cover of the briefing said. He didn't read it. Went ignored. August 6, 2001. He didn't read a presidential briefing sitting on his desk, which explained how bin Laden was planning to fly jets into buildings. After 9/11, Bush and Cheney blamed everyone but themselves. Our FBI and CIA failed to connect the dots, they said. So we need to pass the Patriot Act, and we need to set up a Department of Homeland Security and fight a never-ending war on global terror because our intelligence community failed to connect the dots. No, the dots were connected. Our idiot President George W. Bush didn't read them. The same way he refused to connect the dots that said Afghanistan and Iraq had nothing to do with 9/11, or that Saddam Hussein didn't have weapons of mass destruction and isn't trying to get them. Ignored all that intelligence. Lives lost, all the money and time squandered, all those war crimes just because George Bush never read an intelligence report saying Osama bin Laden intent on flying jets into American buildings. So, giving Israel money to drop bombs on civilians, women and children, makes America less safe, not to mention all the women and children who end up dead. When Pete Hegseth bombs a refugee camp in Yemen, killing innocent Somalis, that makes us less safe. The joint bombing campaign over Iran this year has made Israel less safe. Cutting off military aid to Israel, as minuscule as that aid is, that doesn't make Israel less safe. It makes Israel more likely to talk with its enemies, which is the only way to end all this, negotiations. Cutting off military aid to Israel makes Israel more likely to act in America's best interests by obeying international law and observing American foreign policy, which calls for a two-state solution and an end to the occupation of the West Bank. There are nearly 750,000 Jewish settlers in the West Bank, many of whom are attacking Palestinian civilians daily, blowing up and defacing mosques. That goes against American foreign policy. Not Trump's, but there are agreements in place between Israel and the United States, and Netanyahu is openly defying them, even declaring proudly there will never be a Palestinian state. Netanyahu openly admits to allowing Hamas to receive funding from Qatar. So why? There could never be a two-state solution. He literally said he was building up Hamas so they could challenge the Palestinian moderates, create division inside the Palestinian leadership, and that way he could prove to the world that the Palestinians can't govern themselves. He allowed money to go to Hamas because Hamas, just like Netanyahu, opposes a two-state solution. Like Hamas, Netanyahu wants to fight it out.